on the other side of things, we just finished talking about the Los Angeles Rams side of things. If you're watching this on YouTube and you happen to see this one first, this whole trade is being split up into two segments. You're watching the Lions segment now. You can watch the Rams segment on YouTube as well if you click on the channel. And again, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, this is all one audio file. This is all one go. So we just finished talking about the Rams side of things. The Rams, in my opinion, absolutely overpaid for Matthew Stafford. But if you're a Lions fan in all of this, and you're on the Lions side of things, I just want to give you a nice round of applause. I want to give a nice round of applause for Dan Holmes for absolutely getting a massive swindle on the Los Angeles Rams. His former franchise, by the way, Dan Holmes, who is the new general manager for the Detroit Lions, was an executive. I don't know if he was the general manager, but he was a high up executive in the Rams franchise. So talk about impressing your new bosses while screwing over your former bosses. Dan Holmes gets an A+ in my mind for this trade. I mean, as I said at the end of the Rams segment, the league knew that Matthew Stafford was moving on from the Lions. And when the league knows that something is going to happen regardless of any outcome, that artificially brings down the asking price. So the fact that the Lions were able to get 2 first-rounders, a third rounder, and a serviceable, repairable quarterback, absolutely outstanding. With this trade with the Rams, the Lions have put themselves in a position to realistically be playoff contenders in the NFC in about 2 to 3 years, as opposed to 4 or 5 to even 6 years if you would have drafted somebody like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson in the draft in April. They got an absolute haul from the Rams for a player, again, that they knew, and that's the most, I keep repeating it because that's the most mind-blowing thing to me. People knew that Stafford was going to be traded. I'm praising the Lions front office days after, an entire segment is dedicated to completely trashing the Lions for wasting Matthew Stafford's career. And, it's for that reason that I made that video that I'm also now being very hesitant in what I say. When I say, the Lions can be contenders in 2 to 3 years, as opposed to saying they will be contenders in 2 to 3 years, because this is the Detroit Lions, and even Detroit Lions fans will be the first to tell me, you, and anybody else that they can find some way to scrub this up. They absolutely can. So I want to say that the Lions are now going to be contenders in 2 to 3 years, playoff contenders, that is. Super Bowl, that's a different story, but at least they'll find their way back into the playoffs. I'm fairly positive that will happen, but I'm not going to guarantee it. Excuse me. You still need to draft well. Dan Campbell still needs to be the right head coach. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. But, as I said, once again, Dan Holmes, who's the Lions' new general manager, used to be an executive for the Rams, so he knows Goff well. He knows what Goff brings to the table, so there is that familiarity factor. The Lions aren't just trading for a random QB across the league that they're going to have to learn and develop with. They're still going to have to learn with Jared Goff. Obviously, there's chemistry that's going to need to be made, but at least the Lions kind of know what they're getting with Jared Goff in this situation. And most importantly, they've set themselves up really well in the draft over the next 3 years. Not this year's draft, but the 2022 and the 2023 draft are going to be years in which they're doubled in first-round picks. So they have 2 first-round picks in both those drafts, including the third-round draft pick that they also got for Jared Goff. And, they also have a really young, mostly developed and realized quarterback, and they don't have to spend this year's draft pick on a quarterback, I would assume. Now, it's not, I haven't pushed it completely out of the realm of possibility in which the Lions also draft a quarterback this year in the first round at the number 7 slot. I think they draft 7th. I would be very surprised if they do, though. The reason that I would think that they don't draft a quarterback anymore is the fact that Goff still has 4 years left on his contract. He is signed until 2024. So the Lions, with that move, specifically getting Jared Goff means that they're more likely, more or less, committed to Jared Goff in this situation, considering how many years are left on his contract and how much he's being paid. You would have to commit, if you're the Lions in that situation, to even take Jared Goff off of the Rams' hands. So the Lions, in my mind, are committing to Jared Goff. I would be very surprised if the Lions draft a quarterback with their 7th overall pick. And with that pick now, at least I think they're drafting 7th. Maybe I should just double check that really quick. Pardon me. Yep, they are number 7. So I was correct in my thinking. So they have that number 7 slot. I think at this point, now they can address other needs. I think it would be very foolish if the Lions draft a quarterback after they've just gotten Jared Goff. I think that they can probably go after something on the defensive side. Again, the Lions, as we, research has told, was the worst defense in pretty much every single category last season. 32nd in terms of points allowed, 32nd in terms of yards allowed. So the worst defense. You could definitely use that number 7 pick on a defensive player, or you can get a wide receiver as well in that slot. Kenny Golladay is a free agent, and that is going to be probably priority number 1 if you're the Detroit Lions this offseason, is to re-sign Kenny Golladay. He's a really good wide receiver. Goff is going to need people to throw to. TJ Hawkinson, good tight end for Goff to throw to, but he's going to need wideouts in that offense. Re-sign Kenny Golladay, get an opposite piece on the other side of the field from Golladay, maybe like a Jalen Waddle if he is still there. The Lions did have the worst defense though, so I can imagine them using that number 7 pick on Micah Parsons, linebacker, or Gregory Rousseau out of the University of Miami, who's supposed to be one of the best edge rushing prospects in the draft. They could easily go double defensive with their first couple of picks, go Parsons, Rousseau, or even Barrymore, defensive lineman from University of Alabama, and go really heavy on the front 7. Either way, things are looking up if you're a Detroit Lions fan, and if Holmes' first move is any indication in anything to stand by on what his vision is for this football team and how he's going to go about managing the football team, this could really be good and really prove beneficial to dragging the Detroit Lions out of the hole that they've been in the NFC North for eons and eons and eons. And if you're a Detroit Lions fan, please let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear what you guys think, what your expectations are for Jared Goff in Detroit with a new head coach, but with a lot more draft picks and with potentially a brighter future. So I'm very interested to hear what you think. Some closing thoughts on the trade for the Lions. Really, I don't necessarily know how Jared Goff is going to perform. If you had to ask me on my realistic expectations on what I was expecting from Jared Goff, my real answer to you is he's going to be a Band-Aid quarterback. He's going to be just good enough to put the Lions where they need to be in order to get some structure around the rest of the franchise before deciding whether or not to move on. You'll hear me use the term Band-Aid quarterback a lot, and Jared Goff is probably the most expensive Band-Aid quarterback in the entire NFL at this point. And it's not that Jared Goff is necessarily a horrible quarterback. People want to knock him for regressing over the past few seasons, and yes, that regression is real. That is a valid realized concern / complaint that this quarterback, Jared Goff, is regressing. He's not worth the money that the Rams were paying him, and I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. But you can't also ignore the fact that Jared Goff did enough with the Rams to put them in the Super Bowl. Yes, he rode the defense. Yes, he had Todd Gurley, who was a touchdown machine that year. But he did enough as a game manager to put the Rams in a position to win a Super Bowl. And I'm not going to say that he's going to do that with the Lions. I think he probably won't do that with the Lions. But I think he'll do enough as the Lions QB. He's a good quarterback. He's in terms of accuracy, in terms of game management, he's a good quarterback. He's a Band-Aid quarterback. And who knows, he might surprise the Lions. He might surprise everybody and have a really great season over the next couple of years. And if that's the case, then all the more power to the Lions for making this trade, and all the more power to Goff for turning around the perception of his career. But realistically speaking, based on what we've seen over the past season or so, the odds of that happening are not necessarily likely, which is why I call Jared Goff a Band-Aid quarterback. The most expensive Band-Aid quarterback in the league, but somebody that can hold down the fort and be serviceable to really good anywhere in that ballpark, either serviceable to really good with the Lions while they use the haul that they got for the Rams and potentially some other draft picks as well on with what they've did in their moves during the offseason the last couple of years, to build some kind of structure around the team to make them contenders in the next 2 to 3 years. I still stand by my statement that the trading for Goff has accelerated that cycle, or accelerated that rebuild by a couple of years, 2 to 3 at the most, because you know what Jared Goff is, more or less. You don't have to take a flyer on a rookie quarterback. As good as this draft class is going to be for quarterbacks, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but as good as this draft class is going to be for rookie QBs are still question marks. Even Trevor Lawrence is still a question mark. You know, he's supposed to be he's supposed to become one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. That's a lot of pressure on the kid, obviously. But even with as much of a guarantee as Trevor Lawrence appears to be, it's still a question mark. Busts do exist, ladies and gentlemen. So instead of taking a flyer on a rookie quarterback, you have something that's realized in Jared Goff. Again, he's probably the most expensive Band-Aid quarterback in the league, but he's a serviceable to really good quarterback that will allow the Detroit Lions some time and give the Lions the ability to build a team around a quarterback instead of having to start from a quarterback first and then build the team around him. And of course, that rebuilding process for most teams, obviously there are some teams like the Miami Dolphins that rebuild, that have managed to do such a quick turnaround under Brian Flores, but most teams rebuilding takes anywhere from 4 to 6 full years. So that's my full thoughts on the Matthew Stafford trade from the Lions perspective as well. Again, Lions fans, let me know how you're feeling. I would be relatively happy if I were you guys. I think I would still be sad to see Stafford go, but wish him the best. But Lions fans, tell me how you're feeling. What do you think about the trade, and what do you think about Jared Goff as your quarterback? Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say, now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.